So Rio de Janeiro was done. We saw the death of Brazilian football. Everyone was, in tears. Germany had won the World Cup. We took the last day of Rio at leisure, went for a long walk, packed our bags, prepped our stuff, ready for a bus trip to Sao Paulo. The bus driver that took us from the sort of Airbnb place up to the bus station in Rio was probably the craziest bus driver on the whole of the travels. Crazy driving, good fun, crazy driving. Standing up with big backpacks on, we had to certainly test our balance. But also figured out something on that bus journey. For those that have met me, I'm quite heavily tattooed on one arm. For those that haven't met me, I'm quite heavily tattooed on one arm. So I was holding on to the hand thing, and I got all these kids looking at the tattoos. I'm not quite sure the symbolic gesture of tattoos in Brazil. I've got a feeling it means that you're in some form of gang or something along those lines. That's my understanding. And all these kids were just mesmerised by the tattoos, the skulls, the snakes, the dice. I think I've got one with a cigar somewhere, the rose, everything. And it was only when we got off the bus that we realised that possibly on a couple of occasions, the tattoos might have saved us. Not that we got into a ridiculous amount of trouble. I mean, bear in mind that, when a guy tried robbing us at gunpoint was probably intoxicated anyway, but we realised that actually we might have got away with a couple of things purely because one of us is tattooed. It's possible. Don't know for sure, but it is possible. The trip to Sao Paulo was alright, 7.5 hours, including a nice stop off. There were some interesting stops on the way, service stations in the middle of nowhere to get lunch and all that sort of mumbo jumbo. Sao Paulo, it is a bustling metropolis. It was kind of on the way to where we were looking to go. We were looking to go all the way down to a place called Florianopolis and then onto a place called Foz do Iguaçu, but more on that in the next episode. But for now, Sao Paulo. After checking in, went for a nice long walk, had a chat with people at the hostel, figured out some stuff to do, had a look around the centre of town, all the the cathedral, the architecture. Sao Paulo is just like a place that almost feels like it never ends. And I don't know if this has happened to you when you've been abroad. Whenever you go to, a big city or whatever, I'm always subconsciously comparing it to London. So let's just say London's got a population of 20 million, the greater urban area. I think Sao Paulo is similar. And remember researching Sao Paulo, walking around going, why does a place need 3 airports? It's got 3 airports. Why does it need 3 airports? It's got so many football teams. It's got Corinthians, it's got Palmeiras, it's got Sao Paulo. It's crazy. A place like this doesn't need that many football teams. And then you think back to London and you go, right, okay, well, London's got a multitude of airports. Heathrow, Gatwick, Luton, Stansted, plus others. Okay, how many football teams has London got? Well, teams in the top division, more or less. You've got Tottenham, Arsenal, West Ham, Chelsea, plus a few others. And then you realise that actually that places are quite similar in terms of what they have and what they don't have. I don't know if it's just me that does that. Have you ever done that? If so, let us know, just for curiosity purposes. Apart from that, Sao Paulo was memorable for 2 things. Number one, we were lucky enough to be in the right place at the right time, and this is a common theme throughout the travel episodes, being in the right place at the right time. The Corinthians football team in Sao Paulo were opening their new stadium. The stadium had been used for the World Cup, it had been used for World Cup matches, but their first official league game was coming up in a couple of days. So we decided to have a look for tickets. We visited a couple of Corinthians club shops, and Corinthians are like the Chelsea of Brazilian football. Very, very upmarket, very, very la-di-da. You're sort of paying for the name, paying for the reputation. And because it was a stadium opening, we were trying to look for tickets, and the tickets were about 150 quid. It's like, oh, damn, we're in Brazil here. And there are, as with many society in general, you're going to have your super wealthy, your super rich people, and you're going to have people at the bottom end of the ladder. You could tell just from the prices that Corinthians are this la-di-da club. 150 quid a ticket. We're like, whoa, hang on a minute. That's not good. We're here for experiences, But for game of football at the time, we'll be okay. They were playing a team called Internacional from, I believe they're from Porto Alegre down the road. So we thought, well, what if we went as away fans? There's no big rivalry there between the two teams. What if we went as away fans? And we found out that you could turn up at the stadium on the day. You could go into you pay for a ticket for the away fans section, and it would be, I think at the time, about 50 reais, which is about £16. That's what we're talking about. So we ended up going to the stadium. We ended up going as away fans, Internacional, and it was a good game. The noise from the stadium when the goals went in for Corinthians, it wasn't full by any stretch of the imagination. Corinthians ended up winning the game 2-1, and that's always nice to come away from a game like that knowing that you've got an experience. We were there when Corinthians officially opened their ground with the first league game in the stadium. The other one I love telling people, that on a family holiday years and years ago, 2003 I think it was, family had gone to Portugal, stayed near Lisbon, and we were, thanks to my absolute utter persistence and much to my stepdad's chagrin, we ended up with tickets for Sporting Lisbon's first ever game in their new stadium, and they were playing Manchester United. Now, as mentioned before, a staunch Liverpool fan, the idea of seeing, Man United is not good. My stepdad was a Man United fan, so just the idea of being in a team's stadium, opening the ground, was awesome. But anyway, the thing about that was that there was a young lad at the time for Sporting Lisbon playing, called Cristiano Ronaldo, and he was absolutely sensational. Carved United up. It's no surprise that United went out and bought him. I do remember writing to the Liverpool manager at the time saying that he should buy this kid called Ronaldo. My brother, my mum, stepdad and myself, we all looking at each other saying, that kid's probably going to be the best in the world at some point. He was absolutely extraordinary. So yeah, hold hands up. I have seen Cristiano Ronaldo play for Sporting Lisbon. Still got the programme as well. So yeah, so the sort of football geeky things coming out now. Football and trains, they're the geeky things. The other experience, which was quite bizarre, was for a different football club in Sao Paulo called Palmeiras. We were walking up and down the streets, completely unintentional, completely not, no plans for this at all. And we walked down by a Palmeiras club shop, and a massive queue everywhere. There's loads of people bustling around, and out of nowhere, a car pulls up, and out steps a guy that's a guy called Lucio. Lucio at the time, a Brazilian defender, recently played for Inter Milan, and he was signing for Palmeiras, and they were doing his unveiling in a club shop. So the queue was for people to, go in, buy a shirt, get it signed by Lucio, and all that sort of stuff. Now, Muggins here, Aaron and myself, we've just walked into the club shop. We've got our cameras out. It's evident we're talking in a different language, and for some reason, security's just let us walk straight in, and we're right up front with Lucio. And we've just, number one, we're sort of in amazement that we've been let in. So number two, we're just pretending that we're media. So, we're going around, we're taking different photos from both of our phones, we're chatting to each other, talking about making some bullshit up, basically. What does this mean for Palmeiras? What's his career been like? What's going on? Just absolutely stark raving bonkers that with all this queue, we just literally walked in, security have let us walk in, right up to, right pretty much up to the player, got some cracking photos as well. It's completely bizarre, completely bonkers. So yeah, apparently we might as well have been Sky Sports News, for the day doing that. It was absolutely wonderful. Really, 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 really bizarre. And the sort of shit that only happens when you're travelling, I swear. The sort of stuff that only happens when you're travelling. A couple of regrets, a couple of things. Again, hindsight's a wonderful thing that we didn't do. We saw the Museum of Football. It was in basically where Palmeiras' old stadium is. I think it's the Estadio Municipal Paulo Mercado de Carvalho. Try that for a name. We didn't go into the Museum of Football because it was closed at the time, so that was disappointing. I've done a hell of a lot of walking. It would have been good to have seen the Interlagos Formula One circuit. Neither of us are massive Formula One fans anyway, but with the Ayrton Senna stuff, that again, hindsight would have been pretty cool to see. The zoological park and the botanical gardens were good fun. But everywhere you look around, it's Sao Paulo is just a mega metropolis. If you like that sort of stuff for your holidays, do go. If you're not really after that sort of stuff, you're probably not going to miss much, to be brutally honest with you. After that, it was a simple trip down to Curitiba. It seemed like just like the next logical place to stop. We were following the Lonely Planet guide. Lonely Planet has said that there were a couple of things that you could see or do here. The key thing was a thing called the Sierra Verde Express. Now, the fact that it was a train meant that, being a bit of a train nerd here, we're going there. There's no two ways about it. You're in South America. They're not famed for their trains. We've got to go and get a train. 30 quid for the day, 3.5 hours there, 3.5 hours back. Beautiful. To me, that's a day at leisure. I got into Curitiba, and Curitiba, like it was in 2011, Curitiba, we stayed in a hostel, but we stayed in a 12-bed dorm. Now, the last time we'd done that was back in Southeast Asia about 3 years ago. So we were both a little bit apprehensive about going back into such a dorm. We're normally quite private people, so there's a little bit of apprehension there. But once we got the first couple of nights under the belt, you just get back into the way of doing things, shall we say. Curitiba was a nice place. The Sierra Verde Express was pretty awesome. It's anything but an express, I won't lie. Definitely not an express. Very touristy train, but going through the scenery, just incredible. You're going through these valleys, you're going through over all these bridges, looking at all these trees. You're in the arse end of nowhere. It's 30 degrees. Again, about 30 quid for the day. We ended up in this tiny little town where we had some lunch, walked around the town for a couple of hours, and then got the train back. It was just a fantastic day. You'll see all the photos on Instagram when we're doing the travel Throwback Thursday stuff. You'll see the photos there. I want to say the train was rattling around at about 25, 30 miles per hour, possibly even less than that in some places. Very non-express, put it that way. But it was an absolutely brilliant day. The weather really helped as well. So it still runs to this day. So if you're ever in Curitiba, by all means, do go down and crack on. Have a laugh. I definitely recommend it. The other fun thing, football-related thing that happened in Curitiba, again, this was a case of wanting to go and see as much football as we can, where we can. There's a club in Curitiba called Atletico Paranense. And a bit like Corinthians, they had recently gone into a new stadium, or were planning to go into a new stadium. It had been built specially for the World Cup, and their team was scheduled to play at home when we were in Curitiba. So we thought, this is great. We'll just walk down. We'll go get some tickets. Not an issue. Got down to the stadium. Stadium's closed. Okay, this is a bit strange. The game's going ahead. We've checked the game's going ahead. Stadium's completely closed. Oh, that's a bit weird. We had a walk around the stadium. There's a couple of bars around and about. And we thought, well, tell you what, we're here now. Let's maybe let's go into a bar. Let's have a beer. Let's watch the first half. We're not away fans or anything. We're not going to get in any trouble, basically. So we walked into this bar. And have you ever had that thing where you've walked in somewhere and it pretty much goes to silence and everyone just looks at you? That's exactly what happened in this place. It turned out, without realising, we'd walked into the ULTRAS bar. Yeah, we'd walked into the ULTRAS bar. We've got people that have just given us such an odd look. And it was a bit awkward for about 3 seconds. Very awkward for 3 seconds. doing what you do best. We just headlined for the bar, got a couple of beers, and that was it. We ended up watching the game in the ULTRAS bar. People were very friendly. Again, it was relatively obvious when people were hearing us speak. We weren't from Brazil. We were just there having a laugh. But it was almost like chaos inside. We're talking, great chanting. I think someone even lit a flare off inside, which is completely disastrous, completely bonkers. Don't remember too much about the game. I couldn't even recall what the score was. Don't remember much about it. Not because we were intoxicated, because it was just such a... It's almost like a 90-minute, fiesta, being in there with the ultras, singing, dancing, crazy stuff. As an English football fan, we're just not used to that sort of stuff. So being in a culture where it is like that, it just shows how much, Brazilians or, Latin Americans, dare I say, they just love their football. And again, completely bizarre experience, not planned, no idea what was going on, but we lived to tell the tale, and that's Atletico Paranense and their ultras. So thank you to this day, really appreciate that. And their ultras bar was pretty much next to the stadium. Apparently, there were no fans in the stadium because of previous fan issues, should we say. That's why it was behind closed doors, that game. So good times. But from Curitiba, we will leave the story there. We only have 2 stops left in Brazil, as mentioned, around Florianopolis, which was mentioned by the Airbnb owner in Rio, who said that we should go down there. He said that Brazilians love to go to Florianopolis, so we should go. And from there, we knew that roughly, having spent time looking at maps, having spent time talking to people, we realised that Foz do Iguaçu, which we'll talk about in the next episode, was a place to go. And from there, we decided we might as well go to Paraguay. We might as well go to Paraguay whilst we were at it. Again, we had no set routine. We learned our lessons from 2011, and that's Sao Paulo and Curitiba. Now, the next time, join us where we will see off Brazil, including a hilarious story about a toucan. Till next time, auf Wiedersehen.